On this episode of ResiWeek, Generation Z is coming, ZWave has a new smart start, and SnapAV buys yet another distributor. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 181, Never Stoppin'.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Daylight, the leading producer of high-quality projection screens worldwide.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv, and today I'm pleased to be joined by one of my longtime friends, Stephen Bronner. He is from Pro Audio Georgia. How you doing, bud?
Man, I'm doing outstanding. A little echoey today down in the client's basement down here. Quite a nice little room. Just having a wonderful day, man.
Excellent. We're hoping to have an excellent show. And that will rest on the shoulders of this man, Tim Albright. He is the founder of AVNation. How's that for an intro?
No pressure.
No pressure. None.
Well, man.
Good. Glad to have you both here. Let's kick this off with a story that comes to us from our residential systems. Gen Z, not Z, Gen Z is coming to the workforce. And are you ready? This is from Megan Dutta, who is another good friend of ours. Millennials are so last year. It's time to start thinking about Gen Z or Z, if you're American, coming into the workforce over the last, 3 or 4 years easily. Tim, that you and I have been attending different shows and different management conferences and things such as that within both the residential and the commercial side of the industry. Millennials have been the topic of conversation, and how to manage them, how to sell boardrooms to them, how to sell, residential AV to them. We're now moving on to Gen Z. So, Tim, I want to start with you on this one because you are the furthest from Gen Z of this group today. It was too easy there. How could I not?
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Shots fired. Kicking it off with a bang. When you look at this, when you read these statistics, when you look at this concept from this story, Gen Z is expected to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 61 million individuals in the U.S. make up that. They're going to make up 20% of the workforce by 2020. How do integrators, how do manufacturers, how do people within this industry go about trying to, I don't want to use the word cater, but manage how they deal with
You
these.
mean coddle. You got the wrong C word. Coddle.
I really, really hope we don't do to Z and whatever we call the ones after that. I guess that would be my
Z.
No, after Z, the one after Z is like my nephew who is 20 years old. He's a Z, right? But whatever we call the next generation beyond that, which my daughter just turned 13, so she would be in that generation. I hope we don't do to Z to give it to you, Matt. What we did to the millennials, and that is write stories about how to cater to them or coddle them or sell to them or integrate with them or make sure that they feel important in the workforce, or how to, or the other side of that is, baby boomers and Gen Xers and honestly millennials writing about the evils of Generation Z. People, right? Yeah, they grew up with mobile technology far earlier than you did. I don't care who you are, but they did. They grew up with mobile technology far earlier than you did, internet access far earlier than you did. Most likely, they were streaming before you were, and that's okay. But they're people, bottom line. So you sell to them, and you connect with them, and you build relationships with them, and you find out what they like. I mean, not every single one of them, to use an old millennial trope, likes avocado toast, right? Not every single one of them. It's a millennial thing. Look it up. There's a meme, I'm sure. But these
That's why they don't have houses.
It's why they don't have houses. Yes, because they can't stop eating avocado toast for some reason. But you look at what they're after, what they're interested in, and what drives them, and what they're passionate about. and you build relationships with them, and you connect with them that way, whether that's from the employment side or it's the trying to connect with them from a client side. You just figure it out. I'm really actually kind of glad that Megan wrote it. Megan is a millennial, right? And so she kind of has grown up in this industry, at least, working through this whole, millennials are evil, or millennials are hard to work with, or millennials are this, that, and the other. They're people, dude.
Very good. Stephen, the kind of my biggest takeaway when I read through this article was a little bit of what Tim just said, as far as let's not try and create this massive special class, because all that does is, widen any gap that's there. But really, my takeaway was, when we look at this from the commercial world, you're dealing with larger companies as a rule, where workplace environment is actually a thing. In the residential space, the majority of our offices are a handful of people. It's more of a family. It's a less corporate-y environment. Is this really, how much of this is actually a thing for your average or median AV integrator and their office? Do they need to do anything special for any class, or is it just creating a good work environment for people that work there? Unmute yourself.
Let's see. Okay, so we're gonna put the gloves on, the really soft ones. I will tell you this, and this is my experience working with different generations. I work with a lot of different companies. I do a lot of consulting. I have the privilege of being trusted by a lot of my peers, and those peers range over multiple generations. I've got some that, you're going to find this hard to believe, but they're older than Tim. And I've got some that are actually younger than Matt. They're still in diapers, I guess. I'm not sure. But the thing is Generation Z, there's some research out there that's really cool that a lot of millennials are ignoring. I'm not going to say why they're ignoring it. I'll let you make that decision yourself. The research shows that Generation Z is rejecting every bit of coddling that the millennials have learned to acquire. They actually are highly offended when you treat them that way. They did interviews in high schools. They did interviews with freshmen in college. Oh, Tim has a question.
No, just when you're done, I have a small comment.
Yeah. So there's a lot of research out there that shows that is actually reversing trend, which for someone like myself is awesome. But I have teenagers, and I have people that I care very much about that are not only in the millennial generation, but actually are your typical joke of the day millennials. And we have a good time with it, but I agree. I don't think we should coddle these people. I'm very, very bad at that. I know those of you who've listened to the show when I'm on it
shocked that you say that.
Are really shocked when I say that I am really bad at coddling people. But what I will say is that I think that when you start separating people, and this goes for every aspect of life, whether it's work, play, politics, business, anything, when you start micro separating people, I'm a millennial that has blonde hair, is a little chubby, and I can't dance. I have my own special group. When you start separating people, you instantly give people a reason to fail. And I totally disagree with that. I say that everyone has the strength and the ability to succeed, and I'm going to approach Matt the same way I do Tim, maybe a little slower. I'm going to approach everyone the same. And you know what? Love me or don't love me, I'm going to be me. So the Stephen that you deal with today is the same Stephen that you're going to get in 6 months or a year. And that's how I treat everybody. I respect everybody. I show everybody a level of respect. Now, I may look at you and go, are you freaking serious right now? But that's not disrespectful. It's my way of going, you're full of crap. You know what I mean? Let's get on with this. But I think that if we stop separating people and we stop creating all these little subcultures, everybody wants their own little label. I hate labels. Quit labeling people. Just like Tim said, they're people. They're not Gen Z. They're not Gen W. They're not millennials. They're not old timers. They are literally just people. Quit separating people. Treat everybody equally. Treat everybody with respect, and you'll get a lot further than you will trying to micromanage generations. Can you imagine if everybody treated my generation the way they would treat me? That's just not going to work, man.
Well, I don't think we could all talk that slowly.
No. One thing I was going to say is Stephen was saying that, Gen Z doesn't like to be coddled to. I would argue also that the new generation likes to, right? And there was a period of time, and it's waning because the people who write this stuff have the new generation pick on. But where it was just great source of content for folks to say this, that, and the other about millennials. I don't think the millennials liked it. The vast majority of them,
Well, and to that point, I read a lot of business books, business leadership books, and heck, I read a couple that were written before I was born by some of the stalwarts of that genre. There are good and bad workers and employees and people in every generation. It doesn't matter what generation you're in. There are efficient, hardworking people, and there are lazy people, and every other, descriptor you want to use. It's not, yes, do some millennials, can they be ridiculous? Sure. Have you met me? Can some older generations be ridiculous? Yes. You've met Tim. It's a nature of the beast. Some people are going to just kind of go down that road. But before I get myself into more trouble or talk slower for Tim, because that seems to be the joke today, we are going to move on to a story that comes to us from Residential Tech today. ZWave certification has a new update that focuses on ease of setup in cybersecurity. If you don't know who ZWave is, they are a global membership organization dedicated to advancing ZWave wireless smart home protocols. They released some additional details on ZWave Plus version 2, their certification that is designed for devices built on the new ZWave 700 platform. We've covered the 700 platform quite a bit over the last little bit, but what the new Smart Start setup program, which is being mandated for inclusion into this new version, is going to allow you to essentially, in theory, plug and play. Any light, any lock, anything, give its QR code a quick scan, and it will instantly set up all that information inside a hub and pair it. So you don't have to actually, physically go through that process of doing that. Stephen, I want to start with you on this. ZWave and platforms kind of like it have been great for many things over the years. ZWave obviously has seems to have a lock on the security aspect and the certification aspect that not every other platform does. But when they released 700, we were all very excited. Smart Start seems to just continue to build on that. Is this a protocol that is now going to essentially just speed this process up, or is it something that's going to allow you to do very decent systems to a degree just based on that one hub device and not have to continually have a massive amount of third-party gear if you don't want it?
I don't think it's going to change that particular aspect of our industry at all. The reason why is ZWave is focused on mass market. It always has been. I know as integrators, we like to go, yeah, we do ZWave because it's a buzzword like Bose or Monster Power, or, whatever, OLED, whatever the most recent buzzword is. But the truth is that the ZWave ease of setup is to make things easier on a consumer level. It doesn't really affect us. Most of the guys in our industry are smart enough that even if it was a little difficult, like it was in the beginning, we figure it out. ZWave decreasing their difficulty benefits the DIY far more than it benefits our industry. I think it's cool. I have no problem with the DIY. If someone is doing it themselves, I've actually had customers call me and say, hey, I know you have an AV company and I don't want to waste your time, but I'm trying to set this up. Can you give me a couple of pointers? Absolutely. Because today they can put in their own light switch. Tomorrow you might be there putting in a lighting control system. And so you want to be the guy considered the expert at all times, whether you're selling the product or not. I think that it's good. I really don't think, I know they're talking all about cybersecurity. Once again, I think that's a marketing thing. ZWave has never really been on a realistic level. Of course, somewhere there's some guy going, actually, no. The truth is that
I know that guy who will be saying that.
Yeah, exactly. We all know that guy who wants to come up with the one example in a million, like Fire Marshal Bill. Type in this 800-digit secret passcode and it'll self-destruct. But the truth is, ZWave has always been really secure, and it's a solid technology for a small home. Most of us aren't working in those houses. So our industry needs to stop pushing back on these DIY technologies and start embracing them and saying, hey, you know what, Mr. Homeowner, that's awesome. Go get you a light switch and you can change the colors. But is that light switch going to do scenes for you? Is it going to integrate with your remote control in the living room? So when you hit play on the remote, is it going to dim the lights? Do you have to use 8 different apps to control all the different subsystems in your house? These are the things that that's where we come in at. So, just to go back to what I said originally, yeah, I think that it's great for the DIY guy for it to be simplified. I think they're overhyping the cybersecurity just to have a buzzword on there. But ZWave continues to do the right thing for our industry, or for the industry that it's focused on. We just need to remember that's not exactly us.
All right, Tim, when you hear that, the touted security aspect of ZWave has been really big for a long time. And part of it is that you have to go through certification to get a ZWave approval.
Yeah.
So it's not like some of the other protocols where you can buy a chip and make anything you stinking want, and it doesn't matter what it does, how it works, if it's functional, et cetera, et cetera. ZWave is touted to be significantly more secure just based on that fact alone, let alone some of the other things they're doing.
Bluetooth.
It's a valid point. To Stephen's point, the security aspect, does it matter to integrators? Should it matter to integrators, or is it something that is a warm and fuzzy just for the consumer?
It certainly should matter to integrators. And Stephen makes a good point about some of them are absolutely DIY, but you look at the need and the process that ZWave goes through, and a couple other folks do as well, to get that stamp, right? To get that this is ZWave certified, to guarantee that this company has checked all the boxes, gone through the protocols that ZWave has outlined in their steps. And not only is it secure, but it also works with these other devices. The danger there is you can still get the chip without without passing certification. Meaning, I could go into my garage this afternoon and order a bunch of ZWave chips and throw together some stuff, and I'd have a ZWave product. It may or may not be certified. It won't be, obviously, if I'm doing it this afternoon. But I could still take that logo, put it on a package, and then ZWave would have to find me to kind of whack-a-mole the people and the products that are out there saying that they're certified when they're not. As a step to kind of get there, I would recommend that they pull back a little bit on the chips, and maybe or make them a little bit more difficult to get than just buying them.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our last story of the day. This comes to us from CE Pro and the one and only Julie Jacobson. If you missed it this week, and you probably saw it and just ignored it because it's been happening so much recently, SnapAV acquired another company. This time they bought the West Coast distributor, Custom Plus, who also adds a fun little aspect of having a large 12-volt portfolio. If you don't know who Custom Plus is, they have 5 branch locations in the Pacific Northwest in California, Seattle, Portland, Sacramento, San Jose, and Los Angeles. It is the 4th distributor that SnapAV has acquired since March of 2018. So they now own, if you're following along, Custom Plus, Volutone, AllNet, and MRI. That covers a large portion of the US with brick and mortar and all kinds of good things like that. One of the interesting parts of this story is Custom Plus has a thriving 12-volt business. You may not expect those two words to be together, thriving and 12-volt, but in Custom Plus's case, it does seem to be the truth. Stephen, I'm gonna come back and start with you on this one again, because you come from 12-volt, or you've had experience in 12-volt. My experience in 12-volt was adding and modifying a system that was in a Camaro I owned. That was my 12-volt experience. That's it.
Did you have the mullet to go with it?
I did not have the mullet. Look at this hair. Would this ever be in a mullet cut? Come on, man. I ain't from Georgia.
Hey, now, whoa. Okay, so what I think that I can actually bring something really valuable to this discussion, and it is this.
There's a first time for everything.
Very first time. Hear me clearly. This is a freaking disaster. And I'll tell you why. Because if you have a pulse and a tax ID number, you can already buy anything you want from SnapAV. But there's a lot of people out there doing car audio out of their garage that don't realize that this industry even exists to the extent that it does. I know, because way back in the day, I was that guy before I opened up a shop. So can you imagine somebody, we'll use the name Jim, is in a shop somewhere selling car audio equipment, and he logged into his SnapAV site and he goes, holy crap, is that Yamaha? Is that it? Are those TVs? Wait a minute, so I can start doing home theater now because I have access to all this stuff? It was already hard enough to keep our industry professional. Now you take a wholesale site, what it is, that sells anything to anybody, and you give access to people that are not exposed to the industry. At least before, it was people in the industry. Now you've got people outside the industry. I don't know what that was, but it was on Matt's side, not mine this time. So you've got people that are going to be outside our industry with exposure to our products. It very, very possibly could be the absolute worst mixture that's happened in our industry. All these other buyouts, we all remember my reaction to Samsung buying Harman. All these other buyouts have been interesting, but I honestly feel like, because I've been there, I've been that guy that I knew a lot about car audio, but I knew hardly anything about home theater. But if somebody would have let me log into a website back then, and I'd have access to surround sound receivers and speakers and all this, man, that would have been some on-the-job training and some really upset customers.
That's the thing, though, Steve. Would you have known what to do with it? I'm not saying now, but would you have known what to do with it had you gotten your hands on it?
I would have known a little better than most people because I grew up in love with this industry. But no, the truth is I wouldn't have. But I would have turned around and told customers that I did because it's something that I could sell. And that is where the trouble comes in. It is, I have access to this and I think I know what to do with it. Back then, I thought I had home theater. I thought I had home theater figured out. I put a surround sound in my parents' living room. It ran for years. Boy, I could do anything. I was a home theater guy. And now I look back and I go, oh my goodness, I was just Matt Scott. What was I thinking? And so, we all have to, at some point, we all have to realize that when we were younger, we were all stupid. I was stupid and I learn every day. The difference is now I understand very clearly that I'm learning every day. I cannot imagine what's going to happen when SnapAV tells all these guys that are buying radios and speakers for cars that they can now buy all this home theater stuff at cheap prices.
Now, the one caveat I'll give you is we have a distributor here in Canada who has a home theater division and a 12-volt division. As a home theater division purchaser, we have an account on that side. I can't buy anything on the 12-volt side unless I submit and ask and go through the process to get there. They do the same when they added commercial last year. You have to have a conversation at least, and they talk about turning you on and giving you access to a couple of things. So I don't know. I haven't logged into the US SnapAV side because, well, I'm in Canada. We don't buy from them through their system. But it'll be interesting to see how they do it. The flip side, and the question I want to ask you, Tim, is 12 volt, if we look at it from the other side, is an opportunity. 12 volt is a dying industry. It's not going to be around forever. My wife and I are shopping for a new car for her right now. The audio systems and the infotainment systems in them are fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Not to mention when I plug in CarPlay or Android Auto and just go, I don't even need what Honda makes. I just need that. 12 volt is going to die. It will become this micro niche market for people who want to add massive subs or something else, something incredibly custom to their cars. It's not going to be around forever. So, is Snap potentially, Julie says this is not a story, Steven says this is the end of the world, is this an opportunity to go in and find some potentially competent, trainable people who kind of understand what we do and bring them on board? We talk about doing that with electricians, Steven shaking his head, but is there a possibility there for that?
Absolutely, and there, it's a term that I learned a couple of years ago called acqui-hire, where you acquire a company, not necessarily because you like their bottom line, you like their books, but you need or want one or two or a majority of their employees. So yeah, absolutely, you can certainly look at it that way. You also look at this as a situation where SnapAV makes their own products, and a lot, they OEM some stuff, but they also have some stuff that they design themselves. Also, might be an intellectual property play where SnapAV is looking for some IP to add to or augment some of their existing product lines. So it'll just be kind of interesting to watch.
All right, so gentlemen, let me ask you, either one of you, this follow up. When is Snap going to be done buying? They've been on this insane buying spree. They've cornered the majority of the U.S. distribution market. There's obviously some more people or some more regions that they can go after. Are they going to continue to purchase and just continue to go down that vein? Or are they going to hit, I guess what I'm asking is, are they going to become the next Ingram Micro? Or are they going to, because there comes a point where they can no longer expand within our industry.
Are you asking, are they going to be done, when are they going to be done buying distributors?
Just buying in general.
There's a reason I'm asking, because you're making the argument that there's going to become a point in time where there's no longer any more distributors for them to buy, which I would agree with you. They'll have the region covered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you go down the route of the product line. For crying out loud, they just bought Control 4. So let's start with that one. And you go to, where else can they do? Well, the U.S. is as much as, some Americans would like to think, or contrary to what some Americans like to think, we are not the center of the universe, nor the center of the world. There's an entire other world and globe outside of the States that SnapAV could start going after, right? And I'm just speculating here, obviously, because I don't know anything from inside of Snap. But once they do figure that they've got, the majority of the states covered. Matt, you mentioned the fact that you don't buy them in Canada. You will eventually, and I wasn't joking about that. You will eventually. They will eventually expand beyond the borders of the United States, and they've got good momentum. They've got, at least right now, good cash flow going, and so they're in a acquisition mode. So I don't see them stopping acquiring anytime soon.
Steven, are they going to hit a point where they've got very little left to acquire and they go into product, or they go into international? Or is this something where they will hit a wall and there's nothing left of quote unquote value or massive competition to purchase?
You know what their next purchase is predicted to be. I was talking to some other industry guys. I have heard talk that they're looking to try to purchase Powerhouse Alliance. That's what they're going to do. They're going to stop buying these small groups, and they're going to buy something big like Powerhouse. It would not surprise me if they could purchase Avid. If you could purchase Control 4, you could buy just about any company in the industry, except for maybe a company like maybe Crestron. Maybe. I say maybe because
you get close.
You could get real. I mean, in all honesty, and in the residential side, now they say Crestron is king in commercial. I disagree. Crestron is king in government. But Control 4 is the biggest company in our industry for control right now. So if you can buy them, you can buy just about anybody. So I don't think they're going to continue going 1, 2 at a time. I really, when I mentioned that I thought they were going to buy Powerhouse Alliance, a couple of the guys got kind of skittish and they said, "What have you heard?" And I was like, "Oh, I haven't." "What do you mean, what have I heard?" And so I think that that's the direction they're going. Yes, I think they will eventually be larger than Ingram Micro. And that kind of scares me a little bit because of the commoditization of it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what scares me. You talk about our industry being a small fish. Stephen Bronner is not even a drop of water in this ocean. I mean, seriously. So I understand my place, but they have to go after different verticals. They have to. So what I see happening next is the purchase of other distribution companies, like buying Powerhouse or Avid, if not both. And the other thing that I see is I see them going hard, and I mean real hard, after Extron and other companies that are in the commercial side that have an established reputation, but maybe aren't growing. I'm not in the commercial space, but honestly, the only time I hear the name Extron is when I'm sitting at dinner with you guys at Cedia. Like, even in the commercial space, I hardly ever see that name anymore. So I could see them going out and buying powerful brands like Extron, like these other brands. I could see them buying Barco. I could see them going after different verticals. That's where I think they're going. I think kind of like a person that gets bored, like a guy who collects Jaguars eventually might buy a Porsche just to see how it drives. I think eventually these guys are going to get tired of just being in this industry, and they're going to go after other verticals. And when they do, it's going to cause a shockwave. Because, go ahead.
Now, keep in mind that Snap is owned by Hellman Friedman, which is a massive investment company.
Right. I get it. And what I'm telling you is those guys are the guys I'm talking about that get tired of driving Jaguars. I mean, they're going to say, "Hey, what other industry can we tap?" I mean, good Lord, let's look at their current portfolio, man. They own a major brand in every single vertical. They don't own Yamaha, but they distribute Yamaha. So my thing is I think that what we're about to see is Snap make a splash that's going to make ripples through other industries. And that's when things are going to get real skittish. You let Snap do what Samsung did with Harman. Can you imagine? I mean, that's massive. That's huge. Now, I haven't quite figured out yet what Samsung's going to do with Harman. I don't know. Maybe you guys have.
A lot of money.
Huh?
make a lot of money.
Yeah, they're making killer cash, but everybody was concerned about where the brand was going to go after they bought it, and the brand has literally not moved. I've been looking for big news out of Harman. Maybe I missed it. I don't think so. I've been looking pretty hard. So maybe there's something on the horizon with, something with a control system for Pro. But on the flip side of that, that's where I think Snap is going. I think their next big splash, we'll hear about them buying mom-and-pop-av.com or something, but their next big splash is going to be in the commercial industry. And I think they're going to hit it hard. But I still go back to my same thing. This 12-volt purchase, I know that people say it's not a big deal. This the broken windows thing. You let a little bit of sample of people in, and you might get some really good people that are great integrators. I come from that industry, and I'm at least a 6 out of 10. So, I mean, you get some good integrators, but then on the flip side of that, how many failures are you going to get? I like the old saying, picture the half of the country is dumber than 50% of the people that you like, literally. So if you look at the average person that you talk to and the intelligence of that person, then half the country is dumber than that. Look at our industry. Look at 50% of the integrators you talk to. Half of them are dumber than that. That's scary.
I don't even know how to wrap that up. So I'll do it like this. Say what?
Just say goodnight, crazy.
Yep, pretty much. All right, gentlemen, that's all the time we have for this episode. Send your hate mail to Stephen Bronner on Twitter. No. But seriously, thank you so much. That was a fantastic conversation. Stephen, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Pro Audio Georgia, where can they do that?
You can catch me at Pro Audio GA on Twitter. ProAudioGeorgia.com is my website. I'm hardly ever there. It's like an office. I never get to see it. You can reach out to me anytime. My number is all over the place. I'm not hard to find. And as always, I love working with other integrators, and I'd love to hear anyone's input.
They're going to tell you you're wrong. That's what
they can tell me I'm wrong, and I'll be like, okay, that's cool. I mean, I know I'm wrong. I go home every night to a beautiful wife. She lets me know I'm wrong all the
time. As she should. No, just kidding. Tim, thanks so much for joining us. If people want to connect with you and hear you start to ramble about the depressing season the Bears are going to have, where can they do that?
At the Twitter.
Hockey's over. It's Bears time.
I said they had a good season last year. The Bears had a decent season. They didn't win the Super Bowl, which, there's that.
What's a decent season for the Bears? Like 4 losses, 5 losses?
Yeah.
That's wins.
Good one. That was a good one. They got over 10 wins last year. Anyhow, at TD Albright, Tim David Albright on the Twitters.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining us. For myself, if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter at Matt D. Scott. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all of the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you support them as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.